Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm doing my 13.18 jungle tier list, so if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, there were two new junglers kind of added to the game. Well, one of them was a pre-existing jungler, just to kind of be nerfed out of it because of pro presence, and the other one is a new champion. So, Gwen is the first one I'm going to talk about. Gwen is actually going to go up to the B tier. She is in a situation where she's very much elite skewed. She's definitely a lot better in the hands of people who are more proficient of a champion, but she does have a really good clear speed. She can itemize quite well in the current meta if you're going something like the Nashers into either Riftmaker or Protobelt. However, Protobelt is outperforming Nashers, outperforming Riftmaker at the moment, so I'd definitely recommend leaning more towards the Protobelt. Riftmaker as an item just kind of struggles. It's definitely one of the weaker AP options, but yeah, Protobelt definitely performing quite well at the moment, is an option for Gwen, allows her to gap close, get a bit of movement speed. Alongside that, has a good clear speed. Definitely consider picking her up. She is in a very good spot for Worlds this year. Hopefully we do see some Gwen. Decent champ to watch, has some interesting kind of gameplay mechanics, and just a cool champ all around. Briar is also going to be in the B tier. She is rising in win rate quite rapidly, did receive a hotfix buff, however, is still kind of underperforming. There is an interesting kind of way to play the game, especially with the W being a uncontrollable mechanic where you do chase the nearest opponent, like a self-taunt. You can cancel that with E, of course, but still quite a unique way to have the champion play. R is a basically global projectile which acts like a nocturnal where you connect with it and then you can fly to your target. So overall, it has some kind of interesting kit mechanics. The build to go at the moment is definitely Gore Drinker, Cleaver, Sturk's Gauge are her top 3 performing items. Imagine then you go into flex options, things like Spirits work quite nicely with your healing. Alongside that, you can run things like Death Stance if you want more healing on low health. Overheal, really good sub-rune to run on her. She can really benefit from having a lot of healing, and then by healing feeding into that shield. So quite strong when you are running that. Overall, definitely performing like decently at the moment, but quite hard to play, and I definitely recommend putting games into this champion before taking her into solo queue, as there is a high chance you just run it down in your first couple of games. As the patch goes on and next patch goes live, there is a high chance that she does end up rising in the tiers, but for the moment, as a lot of people are trying her, I'm going to leave her in the B tier, but the win rate isn't bad. Definitely has risen since her launch where it was quite low, and the hotfix has definitely put her in a decent spot in the jungle. Top lane, I'd still avoid playing her. She's still not performing great there, but jungle, as long as you're not going Bork, Stridebreaker and Gore Drink, your main 2 options, can perform well. Kayn is going to stay in the A tier. Received a nerf towards Red Kayn this patch. Wasn't a huge nerf, a bit of damage down on the R alongside a little bit less scaling on the healing. Spiritual Agent did get nerfed, however, which was one of his core items, so he did lose a bit of win rate there, but overall just not a big nerf, so he's going to stay in the A tier. Kayn kind of is just going to perform at a very average level now. He's no longer going to be this really comfortable pick, which you can play in most situations. You do have to pick the right form in the right situation, build him correctly, and then you can still find success on this champion. Jarvan is going to be down to the S tier. Losing damage on passive alongside Spirit Shoujin being nerfed has definitely taken a bit of a chunk out of his win rate. His overall clear speed is lower, his damage is going to be lower, his ability to kind of traverse the map, use his abilities on cooldown is also just going to be lower. So overall, decent hit to his win rate and his performance, but still a very simple champion to play, and if you are playing this champion, then you probably don't want to drop him still. He's still definitely performing quite well. I'm going to move 2 other champs up to the S+ tier. I want the S+ tier to now have 3 champs usually, which can consist within it. There are 3 champs which actually do just perform quite well at the moment, and that is Eve and Bel'Veth. Eve, just really strong champion after her buffs not too long ago. A bit ago actually at this point, but just has a really good time in the jungle. A lot of other champions have been nerfed, which she was quite weak into, and a lot of champions did get buffed, which she had a good time performing against. So definitely performing a lot better. sits at something like a 54% win rate, Emerald Plus, which is very nice for a champion like this. But you do have to pick up that Medjay's as a second item traditionally. You are really going to struggle if you're not like closing games out early on this champion. She does fall off in a lot of scenarios, as she can just be picked and oftentimes bursted down. But if you are keeping tempo, snowballing, using your Medjay stacks, Rabadons, you can even go things like Lichbane and Void Staff, capping out usually, then she's still really strong and definitely one of the best junglers in the game at the moment, alongside Rek'Sai and Bel'Veth. Bel'Veth, really good build with Stridebreaker at the moment, where you can go Stridebreaker into Cleaver, into Titanic, and then something like a Sturks if you're going more tanky. You can, of course, pick up normal bruiser options with things like Death Stance, more. All these items can work quite well on Bel'Veth. However, I definitely recommend trying what builds work for you. I would recommend avoiding the Kraken, however. It does perform significantly worse than the Stridebreaker, which is really much, very much where you spike, especially with the item getting buffed. It was pre-buff, still her best option. Now it's been buffed, still is just going to be even better of an option. Ekko is actually going to move up to the S tier. Ekko is performing really well at the moment. His buffs a while ago, actually 2 or 3 patches ago, where he gained a bit of slow on the Q combined with a bit more damage on the comeback of it and a bit more shielding on the W, has definitely helped this champion. It has allowed him to push up towards the S tier. If you're going something like the Nashers into Protobelt, he has a really high win rate there. And his clear speed, insane, has always been really insane. He does a huge amount of damage with like a 250, 300% multiplier on his passive. Just allows him to one-tap camps and then clear. Of course, Medjay's still being really strong on majority of AP junglers. Your Dianas, your Graves, your Eves. All these champs really benefit from this item, as it allows them to snowball, clear faster, and then be more mobile around the map. It's where a lot of the power of the item comes in. Might even get nerfed at some point, wouldn't surprise me, but yeah, definitely pick up Ekko. Run things like your Lichbane and your Rabadons afterwards. You don't usually need to go Zhonya's, as your R gives you a lot of safety, but if you do want to run Zhonya's as a defensive option, it's definitely there for you. And then Void Staff, Medjay's really good options as capstones and as a good snowball option, so definitely consider that. Other champs, Graves, I'm going to move down to the A tier. Alongside Hecarim, these two champs are just not performing to the level of a lot of the S tier picks at the moment. Graves just not performing as well in the meta as he was towards the beginning of this split. However, he still can snowball quite hard, especially if you're going like your crit variations. He just doesn't perform great with the lethality options at the moment. And the real power was coming from things like Bloodthirster being really good. Of course, the item's been nerfed a couple of times to make it a bit weaker, as it was just generalistically overperforming as an item. Shieldbow not quite as good, but definitely there as an option now, with a couple of buffs coming through on that item. You can still go things like the Collector. The item does work really well on Graves. You don't tend to go a crit mythic, but IE is there for you if you do end up Collector rushing and then you want to build more IE and just spike with your damage quite hard. You can also go things like LDR and GA, of course, if you're like looking to cap out your build. These are options for you. Hecarim is going to also move down to the A tier. With Spirit Surgeon being nerfed, it's definitely going to hurt Hecarim. Overall, he just wasn't performing to the same level that a lot of the other S tier picks were working at. And yeah, Spirit Surgeon being nerfed alongside the itemization just being not too great for him. A lot of people have like very much hopped onto Stridebreaker, which is the best second option for him in most scenarios, where you go something like Spirit Surgeon, Stridebreaker, and then you can pick up things like Hysterics, and then Death Dance. Other options are there. You no longer need Mana Mune, but the win rate has definitely dropped now that you are no longer going your more lethality heavy build, which was outperforming at one point the current bruiser variation. He does scale quite well off, well, he does spike. I wouldn't say he scales too much, but like does spike off your Spirit Surgeon, your Stridebreaker, has a really good 2, 3, 4 item spike, and then can kind of dip when a lot of people can catch him, and he no longer has the level of durability which some of the other champions do later on into the game, or damage. So he can struggle later on, but still definitely has a good mid game and can spike quite well off that. Other champions, I want to talk about is just Naafiri. Naafiri just isn't performing very well at the moment. I definitely recommend dropping her if you did play her jungle. She no longer has the kind of clear or damage which she used to have very much when she got released. She has been nerfed like 3 or 4 times, so overall just not very powerful there. Sits at like a 41% win rate, so I would definitely just recommend hopping off the champion. But overall, that's what I want to talk about. Not a huge amount of changes. I'm just hoping that the world's meta is exciting. That is the main thing. 13.19 comes up soon. We're seeing buffs to like AP Nuno. Past that, it's all up in the air, and hopefully we get an exciting world's meta. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.